And it all started so well. Then we ended up with half the group walking and the other half up to their knees in sand. But before we get into all that, let's have a look at Lake Titicaca. But first we had a quick walk through the street market in Puno. Puno. Who knows? So here we are on the shores of Lake Titicaca, going to do the big tourist thing, going out to see the people living on the reed beds. But over here, this is the good ship Puno, built in England in 1860s, shipped across the Atlantic, through the canal presumably, down the Pacific coast, broken up, put in a truck and brought up to Lake Titicaca, where it serves today as a hospital outreach ship. But our ship for the day was one of the many tourist boats. Just as well we were in low season. So we headed on down, climbed on board and went out to see the people. Felt a bit odd, yet vaguely familiar to be climbing over boats again. The islands are made of the plentiful reeds that grow around, and the islands were populated by the Uros people, basically to stay out of reach of the Incas. The islands are made of fresh reeds laid on top of all the old reeds, and basically they create their own peat bog, so they can then cut that up and use the peat for fires and cooking. And as you can see, they layer up the reeds and keep themselves afloat. Seems to all work, although it is a bit squishy underfoot. And this lady kindly showed us round her house. Mum, Dad and 2 kids all squished in. We came on a tourist gig at Lake Titicaca, and guess what? The carpets came out. Thinking of you. And this is the kitchen, sitting on a flat stone.
But I think it's still risky to make fire there.
We stopped off at a tourist farm near the graveyards of Siustani. And this is the larder. That's where they keep the little guinea pigs. And this is where they pop them in for the weekend roast. And you really do have to love the traditional dress. This is not for tourists, this is everyday wear. And living somewhere with an absolutely stunning view. But it was time to get back on the road. Original plan to head up to Cusco, but it was raining. So we thought, let's go out to the coast and then we'll circle round and get to Cusco that way. What we didn't know at the time was that it's the busiest road in town. Kinda knew we were jumping the queue here. You're not getting in here, buddy. And about now, we worked out that this wasn't actually a dual carriageway, and that we were on a road that carried 450 trucks a day heading to Arequipa. Not our best route planning.
68 to the provincial capital of Salta.
And we finally made it to Mañatzo, where we had a look around and stopped for a quick lunch. Not sure what it was, but as always, it was pretty tasty.
At a town square in a town called the Mañatzo. on the main road. Wee touristy things. Public toilets. And lots of food stalls.
How to tell your wife still loves you after a few decades or more. Bring her to spend the night in a place like this. Single room and a shared bathroom, but as always clean. And that's what counts. And it was even a room with a view. We were pretty high and pretty cold up here, 0 I think it was. But we popped out for dinner into the Evelyn restaurant. Got togged up in our anti-flea suits, unnecessarily, and had a good night's rest. You might wonder why we stay in these kind of places. Well, the reason is there's nowhere else. This was it. In this truck stop right up in the top of the Altiplano. So you either stop, put up with what you get, or press on and on and on. It's a big country. Then the usual morning ritual, squeeze all this into this. And finally, we made it to the big city of Arequipa, Peru's second largest city. We had a wander and a look around the nunnery, where the wealthy could pay to have their daughters pretty much incarcerated for years. Now, having suffered the 450 trucks per day road, I did some Googling to see what was the best option. And there was a route out of town where you could get on a back road, just wiggle through the outskirts, and then you were in the mountains and free. This road had a pretty good report, and we were doing quite well. We've done quite a few miles in this off-road stuff by now, but pretty much learning as we go along. One thing we know we're not good at though is sand. And I don't know what it was, gales of wind or whatever, but before too much longer, when we got a bit higher, we were running into some fairly thick sand. The required technique is basically clench your buttocks and go as fast as you can, 50-60 kilometres an hour. The only problem with that is that if you get it wrong, it's you that's going to be hurtling through the air at 50, 60, 70 kilometres an hour, and it's not going to end well. So the options are you either duck walk through it or you clench your buttocks.
And of course our inflatable jackets are going off. Meanwhile, I'm trekking in the Andes in Kevlar trousers and a motorbike helmet. Oh gosh, I hope he's alright. He thinks there might be sand in that dip. I told him to go to the top and I would catch up. Thank goodness. We've been acclimatising for a while. It's the road we've just come down. It's deep sand again. We're going to have to push, but look what we can see. I think are they not guanacos, Stuart? I'm looking at, oh my God, how are we going to get through that? But behind them, there's the first of the wildlife, and in the distance there's a road. So, this is our last off-road. I'm saying that because I'm never doing this again. However, I've said that before. But this has been a hard one.
Finally, after about 70 kilometres of this stuff, on and off and pushing through the deep stuff, finally we could see the end. I tell you, what a relief. So it was a pretty hard morning and time for lunch. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Next up, we're off to the Colca Canyon to look at the condors.